Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday. It is 4 p.m. ET, and you have found us here, you lucky people, at Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze, where we are welcoming you to talk with Liv Constantine. You can see there are two people, Lynn Constantine and Valerie Constantine, who comprise Liv Constantine, the absolutely best-selling, fabulous Reese Witherspoon authors whose new book is The Senator's Wife, which is out today. Pub Day. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, the USA Today bestselling author of 14, going on 15, yay, novels of suspense. My current book is The House Guest, which is now in a second printing, and that is all because of you, and I thank you all readers very much for that. It is a very life-changing thing. And I just pushed the button on book 15. As I told you, it is called One Wrong Word. And if all goes as planned, and sometimes it does, it will be out next year, February of 2024. Welcome to all of you here today. Look how many people, when I look over here, I'm looking at the comments. Here's Shannon Hansen and Diane Dick, and Anissa is here. Shannon Hansen says, I have heard so many good things about this book. Yes, indeed. As I said, we are welcoming the two women, the two writers, the two authors who are Liv Constantine, two authors in one, says Margaret in the back room. And that is so very true. This book, you all, it's twisty and sophisticated, and it's a deep dive into marriage and relationships and power and manipulation and also perception, which can be quite deceiving. So it's a little gaslight, a little domestic thriller, and 100% wonderful. The Senator's Wife, which is just out today and is already #1 in audio. So after this is over, run, and get a copy of Liv Constantine's The Senator's Wife. One of you lucky people, though, will win a copy of this novel. Lynn and Val are giving away a book, so we will spin the wheel of fun at the end of the show and give that book away. Listen to this blurb about The Senator's Wife from Chandler Baker. Catherine Holland says, I'm so excited for this book, as well you should be. Chandler Baker says, this is so perfect, a deadly cocktail of medical mystery, family drama, and psychological suspense. Perfect. And then she says, I'll admit The Senator's Wife really got me. And I know what she means, because when I read this book, I thought, what? And I know about books, and I know about how they go, and I can always think I can figure things out. And you all just read The Senator's Wife. Don't even try to guess. Just let this movie wash over you. Just let the great story wash over you. Happy Pub Day, you two.
Thank you.
How has it been? Val, start with you. How has it been this Pub Day?
Oh, it's been, first of all, it's a beautiful, sunny, wonderful day. So that always helps. And it's been exciting and a little bit scary, some nerves, but just thrilling. And we have such a wonderful team behind us who have been so supportive and amazing. So there's absolutely nothing to complain about today.
No, you two are such rock stars. Lynn, I know you've had these blockbuster best-selling novels, and this is yet the newest one, this one from Bantam. But still, Pub Day is nerve-wracking, isn't it?
Absolutely. It is. I mean, we spend all of this time writing and editing and being excited for your book, and then it's done and it's out in the world, and there's nothing else that you can do. And it's a good feeling on the one hand, because we're so excited to share it with readers. But on the other hand, it is scary. It's putting your baby out there and saying, okay, now be on your own. And you hope that it's going to do well.
Well, I hope you're reassured by all the adulation and admiration and affection in the comments already. Renee says, The Senator's Wife is on my TBR list. Mary Garrett says, Mount TBR is at a record height. And yes, indeed. Susie Baldwin says, Valerie and Lynn, I enjoyed seeing you at the back room with on Sunday. So you have fans who are following you around the internet, and that is marvelous. And they are going to hear today about The Senator's Wife, your brand new book. Let me quickly take 10 more seconds to tell you that you have found us on A Mighty Blaze, Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. A Mighty Blaze was started 3 years ago now, crazily, by the fabulous powerhouse team of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep the community going, the publishing community, the reading community, the discoverability community, all writers and readers, and all of us who care about books and are always looking for the next perfect book. And that is indeed The Senator's Wife. And that is why we are still going strong here today, 36 or so volunteers who bring you 24/7 programming about books and poetry, and the world of books and poetry of today, we are talking to the Constantines, Liv and Lynn and Valerie Constantine. I've never gotten through an interview with you.
That's so Liv, yeah.
The name. So I'm going to call you both Liv. Sorry.
That's fine. That's good.
That sounds good. I'm going to tell you a little bit about your bio. Liv Constantine is the pen name, as I keep stumbling over, of the sisters Lynn Constantine and Valerie Constantine. Lynn and Valerie are national and international best-selling authors with over 1 million copies sold worldwide. Their books have been translated into 28 languages, available in 33 countries, and are in development for both television and film. And these two are still nervous about.
Yes.
I tell you, remind you of that. Their novels have been praised by USA Today, The Sunday Times, People Magazine, and Good Morning America, among many, many, many others. Their debut novel, The Last Mrs. Parrish, I was going to say, raise your hand, you all, in the comments if you've read The Last Mrs. Parrish. We all have. Is a Reese Witherspoon book club selection, and you know how to find them on Facebook and Instagram under @LivConstantine2. So. This pub day is always crazy because to the people who you care about the most, or a lot at least, who come to your launch, and you're having a big launch planned tonight, now they're going to say to you, tell us about your book. And you're going to have to figure out finally, how would you describe the book?
The hardest part, it's almost harder than writing the book, I think. So here's the final cover, which we're just thrilled with. We love it. I think I saw a question about whether we had input, and we did, but they knocked it out of the park with this pretty much.
We will talk about that in a minute, definitely.
Yeah.
Tell us what's inside.
So The Senator's Wife, of course, takes place in Washington, D.C., and it starts 2 years after a tragedy, which you do get to see in the first chapter, where a woman and a man are both killed. And one of them, the man is a senator, was married to Sloane Montgomery, our protagonist. She remarries the husband of the woman who killed her husband. So it's a little tricky there. And right, did I get that right? I see Valerie making the woman who killed her husband.
Right.
You can undo it. I'd love that. And that's a fantastic scene. I have to say that is a gasp-worthy, memorable scene. We're talking about Liv Constantine's The Senator's Wife. But when I read that, I thought, oh my golly, here we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So originally that was off the page. So that's on the page. But anyway, so we're starting then 2 years later. Things are better. They're recovering from this tragedy, and Sloane is ready to resume her duties at her foundation, her charitable foundation, and to accompany her husband to White House dinners and all of the things that go along with that. But she has hip surgery scheduled for the next in 2 weeks because of the fact that she's been dealing with lupus for 20 years, and that has affected her bones. So they interview home healthcare workers, and they hire Athena Karras, who seems perfect for the job. She aces the interview, and she moves in. Now, you know Athena is up to something because you get perspective from her, but you don't know what. And she comes home. At first, things are fine, but slowly, instead of getting better, Sloane begins to deteriorate. And not only that, but she starts having all other kinds of symptoms that could be a result of the lupus flare she finds herself in, or could be someone else is doing. And she starts to worry that this home healthcare worker might be trying to take her place and take her life.
What do you think about that description, Val?
I think it's a great description. You hit it out of the park. That's good.
I think
the minute Lynn says she seems like the perfect person, all of our radars start pinging.
Right.
And you know that when you're writing her, and you gave her a point of view as well. Talk a little bit about that sort of Constantine subtext. You do this thing so gorgeously where the reader just really doesn't know who's good or bad. Do you know going in?
Who's good?
Who's good and who's bad? We sort of do, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing with especially when you have a character like that who is a point of view character, then you know they're thinking. So um, it's a fine balance, right? And as Lynn said, you know from the very beginning that something is amiss. There's something about her. She's gone after this position with some sort of purpose, but we don't know what that is. So she's suspect from the very beginning. Um, and 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 it's a sort of tightrope to
Yeah.
walk to
Yeah.
make sure you're not divulging too much, but you're not withholding and being unfair to the
Well,
reader.
that's what I was exactly going to say. I mean, you two are just such rock stars at being superly fair. Going when you read the whole book and you go back and think, I should have seen all of that. And I'm not telling you what I'm talking about, you all.
Right.
I should have seen that. It is all on the page. It is all there. You just, because of what readers think they're reading, you two know that. Talk a little bit about your relationship, that tightrope, that relationship with the reader in writing domestic suspense. How you have to walk that line. How much do you think? How top of mind is that for you?
It's very top of mind, and I mean, and even in the editing, when we go back, there may be times when one of us will write something and the other will say, "No, you can't put it that way because that's not true and it's not fair." And so, then we will correct it. Even in like a prior book, the publisher had put a description on the back that actually was not exactly true, and we had to go back and say, no, and they're like, "Oh, you're right." I mean, it's so hard sometimes, right, without giving something away. So we had to phrase it in a different way. But I think, we think about, well, what would our assumption be? What is the general assumption going to be here? And how can we then take that and play to it while still making it a fun story and then surprise the reader? But as you said, hopefully then they go back and say, "Oh, wow, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense."
I mean, that's such sophisticated writing. That's such sophisticated writing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Val, but
Yeah,
that's.
But I was just going to say that the word that you said at the very beginning about perception, that's a huge part of it, because we have different perceptions, and so we look at something and decide that it is one way. That's how we perceive it, and so that is part of the writing as well. Like, how can we make the reader think this? But then, as you said, when you go back and read it again, it's like, well, no, that wasn't what was said. But we have a different perception, and so
And it's so super sophisticated because I don't feel as a reader that you're making me feel a certain way. As a reader, I decided that I thought that.
Right. Yeah.
That's even one level higher.
Thank you. We do try very, very hard to do that, because I don't think it's very satisfying to read a book where it might be a fantastic twist, but when it comes out of left field with absolutely no foundation, it feels like a cheat, right? And so we never want to do that, and hopefully we don't. Yeah.
Absolutely so. So you have these 4 points of view, again, a juggle, but somehow the characters are so differentiated and it's so seamlessly written and it's so easy to get into, and we completely understand whose point of view it is Wit and Rosemary and Athena and Sloane. So we've talked a little bit about Athena. Tell us a little tiny bit about the other 3 puzzle pieces of this novel.
Well, Rosemary is other than Sloane, is my favorite, and I think yours too, right now.
Right.
And she's an 82-year-old woman, former mother-in-law of Sloane, but still close to Sloane. Although, she's not too thrilled with her remarriage, because Sloane was married to Rosemary's son, and she just feels like Wit's moved into his house, this new husband, and kind of taken over everything. They were best friends, but she's a very dynamic, interesting woman in her own right. And very smart, and like in the very beginning, she has a cigarette. She goes outside and has a cigarette and thinks, what the heck, like my daughter would kill me, but at 82, is one cigarette gonna, is that really gonna kill me? I mean, so she's just a lot of fun. I mean, I hope if this ever gets to screen, I'd be really like, that's a character I can't wait to see on screen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have Wit, who is the second husband and the senator, and was best friends with her late husband, actually. And so, this is a new marriage for both of them, and we felt that we needed to include his perspective because readers want to know him, and he at the very beginning is accused of something, and so the reader also wants to know if that's really true, and we just felt that it would be good for him to have his say as well.
Yes. And it's also, that's very fair, because if you've left him out, and all that goes into a new marriage and a new relationship, marrying, being the best friend of a person who is dead, and marrying his wife is iffy, and the hoe. And so to let us in on his perspective is illuminating as well. Renee says, regular issues. This sounds like a disaster. Yes, indeed. A disaster is a good thing in the senator's wife. We're talking about the senator's wife. So let's talk about Sloane. Tell us about Sloane, who is really the main character.
Sure. Sloane is a very strong woman, who has a lot of heart and who cares deeply about other people and about the charities that she supports, and the issues that sorry, my screen, and the issues that they address. And she is dealing with a chronic illness, which she does not allow to define her, but certainly there are times when she's in an active flare, which lupus is a disease that affects people very differently, and some can have it mildly, some it can be fine for a while, and then it can be very severe, it can be life-threatening even. So there are times when it really takes her sort of out, and she's very vulnerable. So it was a balance, wanting to make sure that we presented her as this whole person. We didn't want, again, her disease to define her. It's something that she lives with, and that she has to take into account, but it's not all of her. So I mean, I think that she's somebody I would love to be friends with, right? She's a good friend, she's a good mother, a good wife,
good citizen. Good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Doing the best she can throughout. And I love, Val, that you chose lupus as one of her vulnerabilities, because the book is about facades, and you can be very sick with lupus and no one would know.
That's right.
So it's a perfect thing for her to have fictionally.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about why you did that, and about the role of facades and how things look on the outside, and about, as we were talking earlier, about perception, what a role that plays in this book.
And are you asking why we chose that? Why we chose lupus?
All those kinds of things. You choose the answer. Or any of those things. I mean, it's just such a brilliant thing. It's such a brilliant thing to do.
Well, and you're right. I mean, it is something that that she's dealing with, and anyone who has a disease of this kind. This is an autoimmune disease that, as you said, from the outside, you can look perfectly fine, like everything is wonderful, and yet be in extreme pain, have inflammation, and just all of the things that can go with lupus. But as Lynn said, it's not something that defines her. And the reason that we chose it, which is something, like our heart, we had a cousin who had lupus, and watched, what she went through, and what the disease was like, and how many times it was really a difficult passage for her. And there are so many people who have been diagnosed with lupus, and it's sort of this quiet thing that people don't know about, and can't visually see. And
we wanted to bring awareness. Yeah, we wanted to bring some awareness to it.
No, absolutely. I'm sure that as you go out on tour, you'll be in contact and connection with a lot of people who have this. It's quietly devastating. It makes you have to be alone a lot. And in the book, in The Senator's Wife, we're talking about The Senator's Wife, I see people coming and this is so great. Renee and Sherry is now here, and Janine is here, and Maria Alicia. This is marvelous. Saying the storm is back. Okay. I'm so sorry about that in Florida, Renee. And also lupus makes makes Sloane very needy and vulnerable,
Yes.
and also makes her be unaware of what's real. Talk a little bit about why that's important in the book. Lynn, go ahead about that.
Sure. Well, the fact that one of the things that Sloane has always been concerned about, she has systemic lupus. So she knows that it's possible it can affect any organ, including her brain. And the one thing that has always worried her is that that would happen. So when she starts, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that there's a time where she has a hallucination, and she doesn't know, nor does the reader, is that, a byproduct of what's going on with the lupus or something else happening. And so it makes her, in a sense, an unreliable narrator, maybe even to herself, right? Because she's trying to figure it out, and maybe, in fact, it is that, and not, or maybe something else is going on. So I think it works well to go along that way, as well as making her vulnerable and the isolation. So, and it didn't have to be necessarily lupus for that, but any type of isolation. I mean, I remember even when I had my children and I had C-section and I couldn't leave the bedroom, and and I knew it was going to be okay, but just being up there and you're hearing everybody downstairs having dinner and laughing and watching TV, and you're kind of stuck up there. It's a very lonely feeling, regardless of and so we wanted also to bring that out as the book goes on, where she is in this new marriage where she's supposed to be a newlywed, and yet now she's bedridden, and she's got this beautiful young woman in her house taking care of her, and all of a sudden, maybe she's having dinner with Sloane's husband. So it all swirls around, and she doesn't know. Am I just being paranoid? I mean, is it the illness? What's going on?
And there's a wonderful scene. I commend you all for it, and all of you. And Laurel says, "I hope someone gets their comeuppance."
You can always count on that.
No question. There's one scene that I think is just you two, the essence of you two, and it has to do, and I'm not going to say any more, except it has to do with a red dress and dental floss. And I just thought, hooray, you two are geniuses. You two are geniuses of misdirection. So let's talk about the opposite of misdirection, which is how gorgeous this cover is. Because instantly Washington, D.C., but not a political thriller. This is a domestic thriller where we'll be taken in. Something is wrong with the broken glass.
Right.
We're being taken inside a very expensive, very chic, upper class home. Talk a little bit about why this is so great and why you wanted something like this and how you felt when you saw it.
Oh, the cover?
Oh, we loved it when we saw it. And the cherry blossoms, of course, that just says Washington. And I think they did an amazing job. And we really didn't have, we talked about the general idea of what the cover would be. But they just did an amazing job, and we loved it from the start.
Yeah.
But when you talk about a Washington, D.C. novel, you think political thriller, but this is not that, even though it is in the halls of power. And talk a little bit about how that element of the story, even though it's domestic suspense, there you are in Washington, D.C.
Right. And that's the backdrop.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And there is a little, there are two senators, there's a congresswoman, they have a history of having political lives, the family. And so and there is some politics involved in it as well, but that is very much in the background.
It's definitely on the periphery, and it's not the main story.
Right.
But they have, their lives are going on, and so there are other things that are happening, and it all kind of comes together and
in a very logical way. I mean, the setting is wonderful. It could only take place in Washington, D.C. because of the stakes and because of power, potential power. And you do take us to some amazing places in this book, to White House dinners and receptions. Talk a little bit about how you know so much about that.
That's Valerie.
Well, I used to work in Washington. I worked at the White House in the scheduling office. And so I wasn't necessarily a guest at White House dinners, but I certainly saw.
Our parents were, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean, parents were, yeah.
Right. And so that was many years ago, but I don't think things change very much. It's a place of, it's a feeling of immense power And you just see that it's palpable. You can feel the power. You can feel the intoxication of it and the excitement of people who are invited to these things, of to be in, I mean, to be in the White House and in our nation's capital. That's hugely wonderful. It's you know, people are thrilled to meet the president, to be in that wonderful house, and there's just something so not just glamorous, but as I said, intoxicating about it.
You want, you want to be part of that. I worked in Washington D.C. in the 70s, and went and I worked for Rolling Stone for. Were you there at that time?
Yeah.
I wonder if we were in the same place.
Right?
I went to Susan Ford's prom. I covered Susan Ford's prom for
Oh.
Stone magazine.
Hmm.
Of all the weird stories, and you do feel different when you walk into that building. And I worked in the U.S. Senate for a couple of years, and you do see how much difference one person can make.
And there's such a sense of history that you're just surrounded by. It's all at once intimidating and inspiring, and just I can't. It's hard to even describe the feeling, isn't it, of all that you're surrounded with.
But then in The Senator's Wife, you take that world and you take a real human being, Sloane, and put her, this vulnerable, wonderful, lovely woman, in the midst of swirling power mad desire and manipulation. And it's really a story about how, whether she will survive that, and how. And did you realize when you were, and I'd love you to talk about how you worked together with this. Were there moments when you realized, ooh, we could do this. Oh, this is what she would think. Oh, this is what would happen. We forgot about that. Talk a little bit about how you worked together to make this book so wonderful.
Well, I mean, we go chapter by chapter, but I think probably in revision, there were a lot of times where we realized we needed to, we knew we were going to include a White House dinner and some parties, and we wanted to make it fun and glamorous and exciting. But then I think, we always go back after we've written the shell and say, okay, is it enough? What more could we add, and kind of take it that way. And we write separately scenes and then email each other. And then we'll edit each other's work, and that will go on until the whole book is written. And then again, in the second draft, we're editing together. And then the third draft, one of us is editing and sending in track changes, and then vice versa. So we really both touch every part of the book by the time it's finished. But I think, I think for us, I think it's a little lean, that first draft, right? Usually. Yes. And then we do need to go back and say, all right, let's fill this out a little bit more.
I mean, Val, if I wrote a book with my sister, neither of us would live.
Oh, I bet that's
Look, how do you all work? How do you two work together so respectfully and so successfully?
Well, that is a key word, respect. And we've always been very, very close. And we knew going in that there was never going to be a time that we would be insulting in our comments or in our edits, that we weren't going to have egos, but at the same time, we would be kind and say, this might need a little work, or do you mind if I fill this out a little bit? And so it works. I mean, because if it didn't, you're right, it would be terrible. It wouldn't be a fun job after that. So
you can feel the passion and the joy in your novels. We're talking about The Senator's Wife, which is the pub day today for Liv Constantine's brand new, certain to be a bestseller, already #1 in audio on Amazon. Can't do better than that. You can feel the joy in writing this book. It's seamlessly written, feels like by one person. When you got this book and opened the box, Lynn, what did you think when you thought, we've done it again?
It's just always thrilling, isn't it? I mean, I don't think that it ever gets old, and it's just incredible when you finally can hold that book in your hand. And I think gratitude that it was, again, as Valerie said, it's like we're in a dream with the team at Bantam. They are just the most phenomenal, smart, creative, passionate team that, you know, they truly let us write the book and they did everything else. You know, I mean, it's been
amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, there's no other word for it. So we're very, very grateful for that.
Thank you, Kathy. That's funny. She says there would be a true crime book written about it if I tried to write with my siblings. Speaking of glamorous parties, Lynn and Val are off to their own glamorous launch party. And so we want to let you have a couple of questions now so we can get them out of here and ready to go out and hit the book tour road. Are you going places? Are you going to do a tour? Are you going to be in various places? Can your wonderful fans see you in real life?
Yeah, so we're in Westport tonight at the Westport Playhouse. And then we're at RJ Julia in Madison tomorrow at 6:30. Elm Street Books on Thursday at 6:30. And then next, after the Memorial Day weekend on that Tuesday night, we're at the Milford Barnes & Noble at 6:30. And then I'm at Thriller Fest. And then we'll be the following week, and everything, all the schedules on our Liv Constantine website. And then we're doing some events in Baltimore, and we're doing Politics and Prose in DC, which should be fun since that's, you know, where the book takes place.
And Politics and Prose in DC, not only wonderful because that's where the book takes place, as you say, where I lived in Georgetown for years, but that's a huge deal. They don't have every author. They don't. They only have authors who they think are fantastic and successful and who their clientele would love to hear about. And they have made the right decision with that is as classy as it gets. If you have time for 3 more questions, then from the audience, that would be wonderful. And then we'll give away a copy of your book. Shannon says, how do you go about character names? And these names are perfect in this book. Do you agree on them, or do you get characters to name?
We do it together, and typically we'll go to a website with baby names and start reading through. And we do have a tendency sometimes to pick all of the same first letter, and then we have to go, no, we have too many D names. We need to change it around. But it usually we'll kind of go, no, yes, no, and then we'll both say, oh, that's it. It just kind of happens that way.
Funny how it works. Yeah, it does. We do agree, right?
Mm-hmm. And when you have the right name, it's such the right name. And I thought that Athena Karas was such a perfect choice because it is an outsider name among all of the other Washington blue blood.
Yes.
That was kind of brilliant. Who else has a question? What types of books do you read? Ebook, hardcover, etc. Says Sharon. Ooh, what kind of books?
That's a great question. I like hardcover. Yeah.
I love the
Yeah. I mean, I usually order in hardcover, but I mean, for the beach paperback.
Or paperback, yeah. Something I can hold and has paper in it.
Yes.
Paperback, you don't care if it gets sunscreen on it or sand.
Right.
That's fine. Yeah. One last question. Do we have one last question, Margaret? Have you written books by yourself? If so, do you like writing together or apart more, says Sherry?
I have written 2 books by myself under the pen name Elsie Shaw, which are conspiracy thrillers. And it's more fun to write with Valerie. And, I couldn't send those chapters to her and say, can you please finish this like I can when we write together? And, so it's much more isolating, isolating and hard, although you do have full autonomy, but it's not as much fun at all. And Valerie is working on something on her.
I am working on something like that. And I would say the same thing. I can't say, well, what should the next chapter be? Or where are we going with this? So, our collaboration is fun. And it's also, it's so amazing and turns, it's just much easier, I think, when you're able to bounce things off of each other and get new ideas.
I know I'm very envious of it. And someday when this is all over, in a week or two, when your book tour is done, I want you, Lynn, to come back and look at this video and see the expression on Valerie's face when you said how much you loved working with her, because I've never seen a happier face than that. It was really very lovely. And come back and say hi to all of these people. So I'm going to have them spit. We're going to, let's see. Monty plays.
We should do that. I always wanted to be a singer. That was my dream career.
Are you a good singer?
No. I mean, that's why I'm a writer.
But you know what, Hank? I have to tell you this. We couldn't sing together because we're 14 years apart, and we got close when I was a teenager, but I have a memory when I was younger of riding in the car with Valerie, and she had a Beatles song on, and I was singing along with it, and she looked at me and said, you know, you're supposed to try to sound like the people who are singing. Sing.
And you remember that.
I don't remember that.
I was like, oh, really hurt my feelings.
Oh, so sorry.
Many men have tried to break us up, but no one can. That's the song, Sisters. Okay,
Oh,
so that's wonderful. Good idea. Let's spin the wheel of fun and see who wins a copy of The Senator's Wife. And we will spin. There's got to be music to this, you all. I know there does. But don't you think it's got to be that? It's got to be that. And the winner is Susie Baldwin. That is marvelous. Susie is a wonderful veteran fan of Crime Time. I'm so happy that you have won.
Great. Congratulations.
Lucky you. The rest of you, you know what to do. As soon as this is over, hop right out to your local independent bookstore, or we don't care where you buy it, just anywhere. Just pick up this gorgeous, gorgeous book, Liv Constantine's The Senator's Wife, and you will have it on Pub Day. Lynn and Val, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Hank.
Always a pleasure.
Always great to be with you.
Yes.
Thank you. You're just completely great. Quickly. Next week, I'll be at Thriller Fest, so there's not going to be a Crime Time. The week after that, you all come back because we have MP Woodward and Hannah Mary McKinnon double booked, which is very good on Crime Time. We will be double booked the week after next, whatever day that is. I have no idea. They all run together. But meanwhile, I'm so pleased that you came to join us all here today.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
All right, and I'll see you in New York.
Yeah, I can't wait. And Val, I'll see you in Maryland. And that's wonderful.
That's right.
Fantastic. All right. And you all readers and crime timers, remember, it is always safe inside a book. And we'll see you next time.